What's up, guys? It has been with Ben's election predictions, and this is going to be my final prediction for the 2024 presidential race. I'm going to take some time and, fill in each individual state and kind of give some commentary over the top on, why I think that a state should be going a certain way. And you can read this sticky note for context. So the darkest colors, that'll be either a candidate plus 12, likely between 5 and 12. Lean, which I haven't filled in any of those states yet, will be from 2 to 5. And then tilt is going to be between 0 and 2 percentage points. And that's taking the person that won the state their share minus the person who lost the state. And I'm going to remove the pure toss-up category because we are one day from the election, and this is going to be my final result. So let's just get started here. I wanted to cover some of the likely states that I had here, but didn't want to focus too much on them. As you can see, some people might be a little bit surprised by Kansas, Nebraska, um, and even Iowa. So after that Iowa poll came out, I haven't made it impact like my core thesis on like where this race is. I don't think that the shifts in Iowa are really going to fundamentally affect Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. I do think that the abortion issue could be a very unique issue to Iowa since the 6 week abortion ban did very recently go into effect. But I think the main thing driving that poll, and I don't think Harris is going to win by 3. I think it's probably going to be around Trump 5 or 6. I think a lot of it has to do with the tariffs. Trump has been promising massive tariffs in 2024, even more than he was promising in 2016. And the farmers were hurt by these tariffs during the Trump administration, and Trump compensated them, but still, if we get in a massive trade war, this is going to hurt the Iowa farmers. And the reason why I don't think that translates into Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania is because like they would actually, in theory, be on the winning side of the tariffs, with a lot of car manufacturing, steel manufacturing. There, just a lot of overall manufacturing that could actually be protected. And same thing with Ohio. Well, I think Iowa is going to be about Trump plus 5 or 6. I think Ohio, you're going to see the similar, 8 to 9 margins. And one thing that people also forget too when we think about Iowa, like this was a Trump, +9, +10 state in 2016, and it did shift to the left, marginally. So I would not be surprised if we saw it shift to the left a little bit more, but not to the extent that the Iowa seltzer poll had. Florida, I think most people agree, probably going to be around, that 5 to 12 mark. If I had to put a number on it, I'd probably say between 6 and 8 points. I don't think it's as great as some people might say, but there's been a lot of um Republican migration to the state since COVID, and we saw that in the 2022 midterms when DeSantis and Rubio won by like 18 to 20 points. And with higher voter turnout, it's definitely not going to be to that same level. And I do think Trump's just an overall weaker candidate than DeSantis and Rubio were in Florida, but I think 6 to 8 is like a pretty safe bet. Texas, I think it's going to be very close to the 2020 results. There's factors shifting in either direction. I mean, I think a lot of people, moving into the Austin, Dallas, and Houston areas from like California, you could argue is going to move the state to the left. But many of the people moving there are um, Republican too. So I expect Texas to kind of be like pretty much right in line with how it was in 2020. It might shift to the right slightly, But I don't think we'll see this like blue Texas like people have been talking about. Utah, just with you know, it's a very religious state. I could see it not having overwhelming margins for Trump. Alaska is a state that's been trending blue. They have a Democratic congresswoman, so I could see that being anywhere between 6 to 10 points. Um, South Carolina is a state that I think's gonna trend left a bit. And then Nebraska and Kansas are gonna be, likely states similar to the reason why Iowa was with the farmers and the tariffs. Um, Moving on to the likely Democratic states. So Colorado is a state that's, massively shifted to the left. And I think in 2020, Joe Biden won it by, you know, 14, 15 points. I do think it's going to shift maybe a little bit to the right. They do have a heavily male population just as a percentage of their overall, but a lot of people have been moving into the Colorado area, and that migration tends to be from Democrats. There was actually a great article from the New York Times that mapped it out state by state, whether it was like more Republicans or more Democrats moving into a certain state that I would definitely recommend there. In New Jersey, I do have this as being a likely state, like right under that like 12% margin. I think Joe Biden won the state by around 14 points um in 2020, but I expect it to be around 10 or 11 this go around. Trump has made gains in the New York and New Jersey area, but obviously still won't matter. So let's dive into the lean Democratic states and start to fill in this map. So the first state that I want to fill in is for Virginia, and Virginia is a really interesting state. This is a state that Joe Biden won by 10 points in 2020. And I was really conflicted about where to put this because, in 2016 it was decided by 5 points. And I mean it's a pretty like it's not necessarily a swing state these days. And like even the polls generally have it in the like 6 to 8 point range. I do think Glenn Youngkin has changed the state a little bit. And the fact that he's campaigning with Trump, I have this as a Harris +4 or 5 state, and probably closer to that 5 mark. And if I'm wrong, I'm definitely wrong on the side of maybe overestimating Trump support, but I think you're going to see pretty high turnout from some of these lower counties. And um, Nova's obviously going to vote, and have high voter turnout, but I don't foresee there being like higher voter turnout in 2024 than there was in 2020 when everyone was working from home and it was really easy to vote. And you could argue that, benefited people, the more highly educated people that could like work from home. Next up, I have the state of Minnesota. So it's tough because in 2020 Biden won the state pretty handily. So I don't necessarily like expect it to shift to the right massively, but like I do think it is fairly correlated with these states. And we've seen polls out of Minnesota that have this race as like being closer than people might think. They have had a lot of in-migration that would be more democratic. So, um, even though I have both Minnesota and Virginia being Harris +4 or 5, I think there's like an under 10% chance that Trump actually wins these states just because they have pretty established populations that aren't, super swingy. Next up is New Mexico. This is also interesting. Say it's hard to pull high Native American population there. High Latino population. I think it's actually the only state in the U.S. that isn't a plurality white. It's a plurality or maybe even majority now Hispanic. And we have seen Trump gain with these voters every election from 2016 to 2020. And we saw Hillary Clinton win the state by 8 points in 2016, and Biden extend his lead in 2020. I do foresee though that this is a state that shifts massively to the right in 2024. It has lower population, so you're able to kind of see those swings a bit more. But that's where I have it right now. Next up, moving to the Trump lean state. So I actually only oh, sorry, and I missed New Hampshire. I was conflicted also about I pretty much have these three states as being around like Harris +5, and then New Mexico I have it as being a little bit more like Harris +4. But yeah, I mean New Hampshire was a very close state in 2016, not so close in 2020. Okay. Next up, gonna look at the lean Republican states. I only have one state here, and it's the state of Georgia. And we saw that, Trump won Georgia by nearly 5 points in 2016, and he just narrowly lost it in 2020. I just voter turnout in Georgia is going to be down from 2020 when you had the Stacey Abrams machine getting out every single vote that they possibly could. And I think voter turnout in Georgia is going to be lower. I think that immigration is more of an acute issue in Georgia than it is in some of the other states. Georgia is just a traditionally Republican state, and it really surprised everyone when it went blue in 2020. We saw in the 2022 midterms that, Brian Kemp did very well, even after signing a 6-week abortion ban. And so this makes me think that, the Dobbs effect isn't going to be as massive because they didn't punish Brian Kemp in those midterms. And there's just, even though there are voters that are moving to Atlanta, they aren't necessarily all Democrats. I think it's like pretty mixed. And, the rurals, I think Trump's only going to improve in the rural areas in Georgia, which is, I mean, like Atlanta is a big part of Georgia, but the rural parts are also a big part. So I have Trump winning here right around 2 points, so right above that lean margin. All right. Next up, I have the tilt Democratic state. So I've been conflicted about Michigan, and I have historically put this in the lean Democratic column because this is a state that, Biden won by 3 percentage points in 2020. It has, the massive urban area in Detroit that's heavily Democratic. In the midterms, the Democrats did exceptionally well. They won by like 10 points in the governor's race when people actually thought it was going to be closer. Like there was a lot of Republican pollsters flooding the zone. And this happened across the board in 2022, which is why the expectations going in were that the Republicans would have a massive red wave that never really materialized. Um, but yeah, but that there are showing a lot of cracks in Harris's support in Michigan. It's a economy that's heavily based on the car industry, and I think Trump's message of the Biden-Harris administration is going to kill the traditional car market with these EV mandates. I think that's broken through a little bit. Trump picking up support and Harris losing support among the Arab population and Dearborn, even though I think that's vastly overstated in the media because it's not a huge percentage of the population in Michigan. I think that will have a small effect. And talking to the people in the campaigns, the Democrats seem to be like fairly worried about Michigan, which is a little bit surprising to me. And I still have it as being the leftmost Rust Belt state, but um, I think Harris probably wins it by between 1 or 2 percentage points. All right. Next up, we're going to go to the state of Nevada. It's not Nevada, it's Nevada. I have this as being a tilt Democratic state. I'm recording this right when I think John Ralston's about to come out with his pick, so I have not seen that as well. But I know the early vote has been really good for the Republicans, and Trump probably is going to pick up some of the Hispanic vote. But I just this has been a state that Republicans have always thought that they've been able to pick up, but just like haven't been. And it was fairly static between 2016 and 2020. I think it actually shifted to the right, or no, it was basically like the same exact margin. Biden won by about around 2.5, and so did Hillary Clinton. Um, I just think a lot of the early vote numbers that the Republicans are really excited about, I think a lot of that is just cannibalization of election day vote. Because like I don't think that people are totally pricing in the extent to which the Republican get out the vote campaign, which is starting at the top with Trump and even Elon Musk are pushing early voting, and how different this was from 2020 when Trump told his voters not to vote early. And so I don't know what that means like in terms of how many Republicans necessarily will turn out election day, but I just think these early voting numbers, you really can't look into the tea leaves that much, and it's really hard to measure these independents. So I have as Harris winning the state by under 1 percentage point. So next up I have Arizona, and Arizona is a similar state, and it's it's really confusing to me because I think of Arizona as being a state that has been trending leftward, and there's not a lot to suggest that it's going to trend back to the right. But I have this as being a tilt Republican state because this is one state where it's like in some cases it's been out of the margin of error for the Republicans there. I think immigration has been a very acute issue here, but like the Republicans statewide really haven't won the state since 2016, which makes me skeptical. But I I have Trump just squeaking the state by, um, and I think Nevada and Arizona will be within 1 percentage point of each other. Moving on, the state of North Carolina. I had this sit as lean Republican for a while. I I moved it to tilt Republican because both campaigns think that they can win this state. Trump does not see it as like he's holding a lot of rallies there. And my thought was like, the last time a Democrat won the state was 2008 with Obama. The state voted for Trump, and both times, even when he lost to Biden, and Romney even won the state. But I do think the in-migration to Raleigh, to Charlotte, it's making the state a little bit more democratic. And this has kind of been a state similar to Nevada in that the Democrats always think they're going to win and they always come up short. So I do think that there's a similar story there, but I think Trump probably wins the state by 1 to 2 percentage points, which is exactly what he did in 2020, and not those 2016 margins when he won it by like over 3 points. All right, so either one of these states could be the tipping point state, depending on who I choose. And I do think that Donald Trump's going to win the state of Pennsylvania. So that this state, if we poll it, it's exactly tied. I think 538 has this as being the closest state. Um, Trump is up by zero point 0.1 percentage points for right now. It has the most electoral votes out of the swing states. I mean, it's going to be very close. I mean, if we just go to different models, they all have it as being like incredibly close. And I truly think that the election is going to come down to Pennsylvania, and you can see that all the models just have it as a toss up. The reason why I think that Trump wins this state is like in 2016 and 2020, the polls were, massively underestimated Trump support in all of these Rust Belt states. They have taken corrective measures, and that there have been accusations of hurting, which would, probably put the thumb on the scale for Trump. So, that definitely is something to watch out for if people think, oh, look, the polls underestimated Trump in 2016 and 2020. So if they're tied in 2024, he's definitely going to win. I don't think that's true, but since the 2022 midterms, which the Republicans got destroyed there, and the polls suggested that Dr. Oz might win that Senate race. So while they vastly underestimated Trump in 2020, the polls vastly overestimated Republicans in 2022. I I think in Pennsylvania you're going to see massive, massive voter turnout in the rural. I fundamentally think that Trump's base is going to turn out. This is the last e election that people will have to vote for Trump. And I think that there has been a targeting campaign. I mean, Elon Musk has thrown around millions of dollars. Um, I and they've hyper focused on Pennsylvania from the start. I mean, their highest ad states have been Pennsylvania, North Carolina, and Georgia. And I think this is part of the reason why you've seen the polls in Pennsylvania be closer on aggregate than Michigan and Wisconsin. And if you see in like 2016 and in 2020, Wisconsin was the furthest to the right and Michigan was furthest to the left, but Pennsylvania was right there in the middle. I do think that Pennsylvania is going to be to the right of Wisconsin, and is going to um, put him over the edge there. And then lastly, the state won't really matter, but I do have Wisconsin actually being tilt Republican there. I mean, Wisconsin's a very hard a very hard state to poll. You saw even greater polling errors there in 2016 and especially 2020 than you did these other states. Like there was an A plus rated pollster, the ABC Washington Post poll that had Biden up by 17 points in Wisconsin, and this was right on the eve of the election, and Biden only won this state by less than a percentage points, even when he won Michigan by around 2.5 and Pennsylvania by a little over one. So even though the polls do suggest that like Harris might be doing slightly better in Wisconsin than Pennsylvania. I do, and it is interesting that you have a partisan pollster that's actually saying Harris is going to win it, but I just think it's so hard to pull it. So here you have it. I have Donald Trump winning the election with 291 electoral votes, Kamala Harris with 247. And in terms of my confidence in my predictions, I mean, many of these states are right on a knife's edge. I have Trump winning Pennsylvania between 0 and 1 percentage points, and same with Wisconsin. So if I had to put like a percentage on it, like a lot of these models, which I think are very good at it. Um, they range anywhere between, like giving Trump between like a 47 and like 54% um edge. I would personally probably put Trump a little bit closer to, where even the betting markets have it right now. Probably a little bit closer to a 60% point edge. And this all could just comes down to Pennsylvania. I think that Trump does win most of the Sun Belt states, but he that doesn't even have to win all of them. And Harris's math is like she has to hold onto those Rust Belt states. And I'm just not convinced, based on what happened in 2016 and 2020, that she can do it. But please let me know what y'all think. I want to get this video out soon. I know it's very close to the election. But yeah, please comment, share, and thank you guys for watching.